Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,500 comedians for the last 50 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's Mr. Ross Smith. Yay! Hello, mate.
Very happy to be here. Very happy.
How are you doing? You all right?
I'm really good. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for doing this. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while.
Yeah. No, well, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while as well. All the other comedians do it, and I'm always like, "What? Where's mine?"
Well, it's just gone bonkers. It's a wonderful, passionate thing to be able to sit in an audience and watch what you all do. It's just fantastic. I love to go.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it's,
Well,
it,
I mean, you're a brilliant audience member as well. Like, you are, because a lot of audiences sort of, it's that thing of like, make me laugh. Where always
Well,
the audience, which is great.
I think the reason why I go is the enjoyment I get out of it because the blog is so designed not just for the big hitting comedians, it's for the new up and coming ones as well, and anyone who wants to have a go.
Oh, I went on a huge, when I met you, I went on a huge like look through all of them, and there's people that I know personally. I was hearing stories that I'd never heard. I didn't know why.
It's incredible. I mean, it really is. Anyway, it's not about them. It's about you. Let's start with the first question. How did you become a comedian in the first place, please?
Oh, great question. I mean, I think, there's a long answer, and there's like a short answer. To that. There's the sort of years of thinking, oh, could I do it? Couldn't I? And watching a lot of it. And I think I used to watch it differently when I was younger because, my brothers or my friends or, my family would watch Lee Evans or something, and I'd go, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think, but how does he do it? Because I just used to think they used to make it up. And I used to think, oh, that man is the funniest man alive. But then I started to work out, and I sort of come up with a bit of a theory about most comedians now, that we all have this same brain, and yeah, it's probably ADHD now. We all have the same brain of thinking, well, why is that funny, or how is that funny? So I had that going on in my head for a long time, and then I decided when I went to university that I was going to go and do it, and so I went along in Freshers Week. I went along to a comedy night, and I watched two comedians who will remain nameless, and they did half an hour each, and they both completely died on their ass for half an hour each, and that scared me, and I didn't want to do it after that.
Right.
And then when I reached about 20, I want to say 24 or 25, I maybe a bit earlier than that. I went out with a girl who was really into British comedy, like to an insane degree, and showed me a load of comedians I'd never heard of. So showed me a lot of, Josh Widdicombe and James A. Caster and all these people. So what I did was it didn't, the relationship didn't end brilliantly. So in a kind of rom-com style pathetic move, I thought, well, I'll try comedy then. That's the way that I'll win her back. So
Brilliant.
So I went along to the Lion's Den in London. Moved to London by that point. I went along to the Lion's Den, and in my head I was already a comedian, But basically, all I did was just write half thoughts, or I would, go on sort of websites and nick jokes. That's what I thought. I thought that's how I thought you had to do it. And then I went along there. And I went with a friend because I couldn't go on my own, and I got very, very drunk, really drunk. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what I did at that gig. But Lions Den was just full of other comedians just watching you, waiting for you to finish, basically.
Yeah.
Who knows? But my friend went up as well. My friend left the venue, and he was almost in tears and said, I'm never going to do that again.
Wow.
Whereas I left the venue and I was really drunk, but I can remember thinking, that's all I'm going to do now. I'm going to do that. I want that again. So I did sort of 12 or so gigs or 13 or so gigs, and then I didn't have a job in London. I was just sort of sofa surfing on people's couches. So then
Right.
I had to move back to Northamptonshire, where I didn't know if there were any gigs or anything. So I just gave it up for a few years, and then I came back to London. And when I came back to London, that was my first port of call, was right, what comedy clubs can I go to? What can I do? And I found, luckily, better nights than the Lions Den. Um, Started doing it and just really sort of really fell in love with it in a kind of I'm gonna work that, like, sometimes I think I see comedy as, when you get like an IKEA flat pack sort of thing and it's in a completely different language and you're like, but I'm gonna work this out. And that's how I was just thinking, I'm going to work this out fully. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years.
Good man. So you've been going for 10 years.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like that sometimes. Sometimes it feels way longer, but sometimes it feels like the blinking of an eye, It doesn't feel like it feels like yesterday I was doing my first gig.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been in London for 30 years. My home city's Carlisle, and I always go back there when I can. And you talking about Lee Evans? He used to do warm up gigs at the Sand Centre in Carlisle
Wow.
for his big arena tours. And I've shook his hand and patted the back full of sweat.
Yeah.
But he was phenomenal. He was
Oh,
probably the best comedian for visual humour ever. I would think there would always be a visual funny face at the end of a gag. It was brilliant.
no, I just think I think there's a lot of comedians, I've been guilty of this sometimes, as you sort of look down your nose at sort of people like that, whereas I go, but they're absolutely brilliant. And there's still observations that, like, there are a lot of comedians that, I'll talk about sort of later on in this chat, who I'll
Yeah,
go, oh my God, they're geniuses. But
yeah.
with Lee Evans, I don't think he gets the sort of to physically act out a bit like that and to perfectly do the sort of, and yes, it might be a bit sort of base observations of, like, aren't airports difficult, but they stick with you. And like, I can remember belly laughing at that stuff. I can remember being on my living room floor, like literally rolling around on the floor as
Yeah.
my, like, parents were laughing at it as well, and being like, can you play that again, do that bit again, like it just
He
seems like
is he is brilliant.
he's
I
unreal.
I first saw him at the Manchester Comedy Festival, somewhere like 1988, something like that. And he was just a young bloke, and you thought, he's
Wow.
hilarious. There's something very special. Um,
Well, I read his autobiography, and he talks about, how he got into it, and he wanted
mm,
to be a serious musician.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
sort of, like,
yeah,
clumsy
brilliant.
comedy.
Yeah, superb. So you're there 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Can you describe your first ever gig?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
I hope it's good.
Well, I've got two kind of first gigs, really, because I started once, like, one, like, kind of abortive attempt, and then couldn't keep doing it. Um, but the first one was the Lion's Den, which was in Piccadilly, and it was basically just I had a friend, and I said to him, I want to try stand-up comedy, and he said, me too. So let's just Google where we can do it. And so we Googled open mic comedy nights in London, and the first one that came up with it was the Lion's Den. And it was a place where, when you arrived, you had to go and well, what we decided to do was we go and scout it out first, go and look at how you do it. So we went down there, and it was at a place called Bar Rumba, which is right on sort of Piccadilly Circus kind of thing. It's right near what used to be the Trocadero, and Shaftesbury Avenue and all this kind of stuff. And you'd queue up, you queue up, and there would be sort of 25 other comedians, 30 other comedians, and you'd be queued there from about five, right? So you'd be in this queue for, I think it started at 7. I want to say it started at 7, or that's when they opened the doors. But you queue up from about 5, and then you go downstairs into the dingiest basement I've ever seen, and it really smelled bad. And there would be a guy, and you'd pay I think it was £6 or something. You paid £6, and and the guy would go, "Okay, well, your name is in the hat for tonight." And then, so this is what happened, you know. So I turned up, and I beforehand, my friend said, "Let's get a drink." But I'm quite a lightweight, so you know, we had like two ciders, and I was gone, you know. I had my I had my piece of paper of what I was going to talk about, you know, and I was really like, I don't think I've ever felt nerves like it. So he paid us £6, and you know, it went throughout the night, and it kept on going throughout the night, and it basically it's other comedians, and they're literally sat there, and I've never seen this before or since, and they're just writing their notes in front of you, just sat down in front of you, and the MC was a guy who just went on and just said, I think it's Tim, I can't remember his surname, but it was
Tim Renkow.
no, it wasn't Tim
No.
Renko, I don't think. No.
Tim Clark is a good MC.
No, it
No,
wasn't Tim Clark. It was I can't remember his
can't
name. I'm sure
remember. No, no.
there might be a few like sort of Lions Den people. How dare you? Um, but he would pull it out of a jester's hat, and he'd say, "I'm not here to be a comedian." He'd say, "I'm not here to be a host. They're the other comedians, the people to be a comedian." And it was quite nice because it was honest. And he'd just go, "Right, so you know," and then pull people out of a hat, and they'd come on and they'd do 5 minutes, and it would be like if you got a chuckle, that would be out of the norm. You know, if you got like a chuckle from a kind of joke, that would be out of the norm. There was no you in the audience, Richard. You know, like everybody was just stony faced, either who's this kid or any of these things. And it felt like a little club. So anyway, I go down there and I'm really drunk and I've paid my £6 and I get my sort of jokes that I've done out of it. And I can just remember what I can remember is that he pulled it out of a hat and at first I didn't register that it was me. And then he said, Ross Smith. And then I was like, oh God. So I went up there. The first thing that I did when I went up there was like, I talked about how bright it was, which I hate when comedians do now. But I was struck by like how it looked like I was about to be sort of abducted by aliens, sort of thing. You know, I couldn't see anything. I immediately forgot every part of my set.
No.
Was completely hammered.
Oh.
And I think I said one thing. I can't remember what I said, but it kind of talks to emceeing later on. I think I said one thing that kind of got a bit of a chuckle, you know, as in like, you know, maybe they were laughing at me. And I just remember feeling great that I'd got that laugh, and I thought, oh God, you know, great. I want to keep doing that. And then I just remember I spoke to a guy in the front row, and I wanted to speak to him because I'd forgotten all of my jokes, but I didn't know what to ask him. And I think he was a comedian who'd either been on or was going to go on. And I just kept asking him if he liked football. And I can remember in my drunken age just snapshots of him going, yeah. And I'm going, but do you like football? And him going, yeah, I'd like football. But it was going for ages. I tried a few more jokes, they didn't work. And then I came off stage. And as I said to you, I spoke to my friend immediately because he went on, I think he went on later that night. And he was like white as a sheet. And he just said, I never want to do that again. Whereas I went away and thought, right, I'm going to come back here next week. You know,
and you did.
Well, I did, yeah. You know,
good for you.
Yeah, and then like the second one was sort of I had my head together a bit more there because I've got a bit of a theory where I think that anybody starting comedy before 25 either have to be, you know, what for me, like nothing had happened in my life. You know, I'd come from a small village. I'd lived in London for maybe like a week by that point. You know, like I had nothing. I had no experience. What was I going to talk about?
There's always something.
Second time I started it was with Party Piece, and it was Tom Webb emceeing, who was unbelievable. It was like I've seen an MC for the first time. I was like, this is real magic.
Yeah.
And then I went on, and I'd written a set this time, and it was a proper set, and it went really well. And I can remember, and then once I started it, then I thought this is just a matter of time before I'm on 8 Out of 10 Cats.
And rightly so.
Probably less than 10 gigs, probably less than 10, you know. And then I did that one gig, and then for the next, I would say 8 or 9 gigs, I just died on my ass completely everywhere I went. And
I always say to comedians I talk to, whether it's live or here, it's all about I guess it's all about experience. You have to have a bad gig to be a better comedian.
yeah,
Because the wonderful thing about watching you is that you're in the moment, so you're in a specific space and time,
yeah.
and when you walk on, you've got that audience at that moment, and anything can happen, and that's the magic of it.
I mean, what I also want to say to comedians as well is that, sort of sometimes you run away from the thing that you're good at, because in some way you think, oh, it would be better if I was this, or it would be better if I was, if I talked about politics, or I did this sort of thing. But no, you've got to run to what the audience sort of want from you. And the reason that I really love that you say about the, being so in the room, and that is a consequence of, for the first sort of 30, 40, 50 gigs, I was so out of the room. I would practice in front of my mirror. I would, practice in front of my mirror, say the words, oh, I didn't quite say that properly. And then I'd go on stage and just do that again. And I can remember once there was, do you know Curra Bull?
Very much so, yeah.
Great guy, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny as well. But
yeah,
I can remember I used to do a very deadpan character, sort of as I guess, kind of a defense mechanism. Oh, if they didn't like me, they didn't not like me. They just didn't like my character.
Yeah.
And I can remember I did a set in front of, and he was in the audience, and I laughed at I messed up one of my jokes, and I laughed. I broke that character, and he said, "Oh, what was really interesting there is when you broke character and you laughed, the whole room laughed with you, because we all automatically really liked you in that moment." And a little thing twigged in my head where I thought, "Oh, I think maybe I should maybe try and be in the room with them and try and,
Yeah, and certainly that is noticeable when I watch you, because one of the things that is immediate about you is that you're very likable on stage, and that means you can get away with just about saying anything. Once you've got the audience, you're away, because you're very charming, you're very warm. They want to come on the journey with you, and it's wonderful to see. And I thought this guy is really good, and I think it helps both ways, because you get better and better the more confident you are. That's the other big thing about you. Your confidence is incredible on stage.
Well, I mean, for one, my girlfriend just walked past the screen when you said likable and was like,
I don't care if anybody else is listening, it's true.
It's one of those things, there's one thing that I really love about comedy is that, with the likable sort of thing, it is a kind of thing of, the audiences are always going to tell you who you really are.
Yeah.
And you have to listen to that audience. So if you might not be able to see it yourself. Like, I would say that I'm quite a miserable guy.
Well, okay, the public persona when I've seen you is warm.
I would say that, but I think that that kind of thing is, I guess it's kind of wanky to say, but when I'm on stage, I really do feel like I'm, the sort of concentrated version of me.
Yeah.
A lot of people maybe don't, but also the confidence thing, that is Stephen Grant. I went on one of his courses really early, and he's unbelievable.
He's been on here. He was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Just an absolute fountain of knowledge. And he said to me, well, he said to the whole room, but I really took it on. He said, when you perform the comedy, you should perform like, because he said what you reflect is what the audience reflects back. You're a mirror. So if you're nervous, they're going to be nervous. If you're anxious, they're going to be anxious. And he said, when you perform comedy, you should always perform it like you're a little bit bored, not in the way of, not in the way of like, oh, I don't want to be here, but this guy does this job so much, it's almost a bit dull to him, and that's the thing, is that I often think with confidence that it is, it's acting the part until you are confident.
Yeah. I always remember that we went to see a comedian who shall remain nameless, who walked out on the stage to 3 people in the crowd, and he went, "Hello, here we are. Yes, hello." And then he saw them, and he went, "Oh, there's only 3 people in tonight. I'm not going to bother." And one bloke in the front row went, "No, I've paid my £10. I want the hour." And he had to perform it, and it was like, well, the show's got to go on.
Yeah, good on it though.
Yeah.
Good on that audience member, because I think that there's the really important thing to me in comedy is that, like, you know, and again, it might have been a Stephen Grant thing. It might have been my mate Steve Dunn saying to me is that, like, you know, yes, it's for you, it's for the comedian, but it's also for the audience, and that's the constant thing that I have in my head is that, like, I don't know whether those 3 people who have got a babysitter.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
and this is the only night that they get out. And also, you know, you have to play what's in the room. You know, if there is 3 people in there as well, it's not their fault. It's not they didn't kill the rest of the audience.
That's very true. Very true. Well done, you. Can you tell me about your writing process for a routine or a show? Do you have a specific way?
I do have a specific way, but it's slightly embarrassing, which is, well, I write it in the notes on my phone.
Right.
What I'll do is that I'll ask my girlfriend if it's funny, first of all, and she'll tell me yes or no.
Right.
But I will, I'll write in the notes on my phone, and then I'll go through the notes on my phone when I'm at a coffee shop and pick the one that I feel most sort of like, you know, I can make this a thing. And over the years, it's developed to now I have to have a reason for it, you know. So the reason is why, like in nicer terms, it's what are you trying to say, and in less nice terms, it's why should people give a fuck?
It's a good way of going about it.
And then what I'll do is and this is really bad, like, because sometimes I will if it's a comic, I will tell them, I will say, you know, this is like a bit that I'm trying to work out, what do you think? But sometimes, you know, if I'm around my brothers or if I'm around somebody I find really funny, I just talk to them about it, you know. I just tell them the story, and I just hope that sort of, because then it formulates, like, I've realized that, you know, I'm quite neurotic, so, you know, I will write bits out verbatim, but I've learned that often I can write 5 pages and it goes down to, you know, a paragraph, and that's just because nobody talks like they write, do they?
So if you're writing a new piece of material, say, which is going to last about 10 minutes, do you have notes on stage with you if you haven't done it before, and do you look at your notes? The reason I'm asking this is lots of comedians do this, and I recently saw Josh Widdicombe, who I know well, and he walked on stage and he went, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, I'm doing a new material night for a tour that is going to start in September 2025. So really, I don't give a fuck how this goes tonight." But it's because he had the notes going, you know, and I think you need something to get it into you, to practice it in front of an audience. Am I right?
Yes, but do you know what? Like, I will say that because I MC mainly, I think that I'm still, you know, after 10 years, getting to grips with how to run in new material, where you know, I'm very good at sort of, you know, I write for other people and I direct other people and this sort of stuff. But when it comes to my own stuff, I'd love to have that confidence of Josh, but like in my head, it goes out of my head, you know, where it's like, but then it kind of takes me out of the room to keep checking notes. So it's kind of a bit of a catch-22. But you know, I did a sort of topical bit last night about Trump and Biden up the creek, and it was kind of a last minute just decision. I was feeling good and the gig was going well, and I just thought, you know what, screw it, like, you've written this thing, and, you know, why not just try it? And it went really well, and I did it with no notes or anything, and I was riffing new lines, and it's one of those things, I think, for me, where if I don't feel it in the room, then I'm just not going to feel the material. So I don't know.
Tell me more about writing for other comedians. Do you is there a difference between that and writing for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me anyway, I feel like sort of when there's other comedians, because I'm so, and again, I think this is a real, you know, a real thing for other comedians, and also probably, you know, like yourself, you end up sort of watching a lot of comedy that you learn rhythms and you analyze and you go, okay, I think he's probably going to do this or say this, or, you know, okay, he's just said that bit, and I reckon it's going to be about 5 minutes before that line comes back, because, you know, it's so good. And so I started doing that with a lot of my friends, and, you know, I didn't really understand the decorum early on, so I would go up to people after gigs and be like, you know, when you say this, you should say this. Um, which, you know, a lot of people didn't. But a few of my friends I just know so well,
Yeah.
and know their voice so well that, like, they would be talking to me socially, and I'd say, you know, you should write that, right? You know, you should write that down because you could say this and you could do that. And there was a lot of comedians who sort of took quite a lot of that on and then would come back to me and say, "Oh, I've got another bit. Would you mind helping me write this?" So I'm trying to sort of sideline into that now, which is, you know, there's a few people who've done Edinburgh shows and they'll ask me to help structure it, or they'll ask for like additional material.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What's that? Sorry.
I just agreed with you. I said,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, if you've got comedians who are at Edinburgh, that's fantastic.
yeah, and I think like that's what I love more than anything is, you know, when with my own laugh, I kind of think, you know, yeah, well, you know, you said it to be funny, and it did get. It's almost like I feel like a magician sort of doing a trick where I go, no, but I know the real process behind that. You know, it's not really, you're not really moving your thumb off the thing. It's just it's your other thumb, mate. But when it's another comedian, when they get a laugh from it, it gives me such a sense of like, you were right.
That's brilliant. That's so good.
So, there's one example I can give, which is Richard Todd. Have you met? Have you
Yeah,
seen?
yeah, yeah,
Unbelievable. One of my best friends. He's so good.
yeah.
Criminally underrated as
He
well.
is superb. Yeah,
Um, but he said about an Edinburgh show I want to write about my dad, and so I said, okay, well, we'll sit down, and almost like a therapist, we sat down in a coffee shop. And I got my phone out, and I'd gone away and I'd written sort of 25 questions about his dad, because Rich is one of those people who speaks in stand up.
yeah.
Um, and I recorded it, and then I went away and I annotated bits that I thought that he should like push further on. By the way, this is all stuff that's taught to me by Steve Dunn, who's directed both my shows.
Yeah.
But I did that with Richard, and then I was so proud because he got a really good review in Chortle that year, and Chortle mentioned one of the lines that I like sort of circled him in, like, you have to say this in your Edinburgh show, and they pointed it out as like a highlight, and I was really like, oh my God, like, you know, what gets better than that? Steve
Yeah,
Dunn.
superb. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so good. Um, you mentioned earlier on about nerves. Do you ever get nervous before you go on stage? And if so, how do you cope with the nerves?
Um, I don't. I'll be honest with you. And what I was trying to do
Right.
then, I say it now, like I've almost got a kind of serial killer sense of calm, where I just kind of think, no, this is going to happen. At some gigs, if it's a new gig to me, or if there's a lot of people, or if I think that it looks quite difficult, then I will get a tinge of panic when they call my name. But as soon as I get up there now and see it from the view on the stage and say my first joke, I'm not nervous anymore.
Would you would you say that as soon as you speak into the microphone, or as soon as you get your first laugh, any nerves that you may have go away?
Yeah, yeah. But also before that, like, I try and convey that kind of like confident, you know, I'm really confident.
It's
Like,
there, my friend. It's there.
yeah. But in my head, I'm shitting my pants going. I do have some crazy, well, not some crazy rituals, but like two things that I have to, well, three things that I have to do before I go on stage. I write all of my joke headings on a tiny bit of piece of paper, and the back, and put it in the back left pocket. It has to be the back left pocket, and that'll be all of my jokes in order that I have to do.
Wow.
And then what I do is before the gig, I'll maybe write something about the room, or I'll write something about what happened. And that keeps me in the room. You know,
Well, you've got your prompt, I suppose, in your pocket. Should it ever go wrong, or should you ever get stuck? Yeah.
And I've never needed it. I've never needed it, but I need that in my. And a lot of the time, I won't even use the things that I've written down, as in like, you know, this audience member or this thing. But it's just while I noticed really early on that a lot of other comedians would like sort of talk to the other comedians or drink, or, you know, like not focus on the gig. And I never wanted to be like that. I always wanted to be like, right, I'm going to be here if something, because, you know, you see comedians go on stage and be like, hey mate, who are you? And you know, the MC would have had a 20-minute chat with that guy, and you'd be like, just watch the fucking gig.
I had to go once. I've only ever had to go once.
Oh, okay.
Once, yeah, which was an event. It was years and years ago. I knew a promoter at Edinburgh when I first went there. And I said to him, people think I'm funny in pubs. I can remember jokes from comedians. I'd like to have a go, please. And he said, certainly. He said, yeah. He said, we've got a room full of old people on a rainy afternoon. It's a gong show. It couldn't be worse. And I walked out and I had this script about me crashing cars in Carlisle, trying to impress my girlfriend. And I walked out, and he loved the script. And he said, right, he said, you got 3 minutes. So I walked out and I said, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And when I was at college, I was his double. I still am. One old fella, the back just went, fuck off, and jumped off. And I walked up to my own footsteps. And the bloke said, have another go. I said, I don't know, I think my callings may be in the audience. But never say never. But it wasn't the best start.
What I will say is, you know, earlier when I said that I don't get nervous, the nerves have just come back at that. Because, you know, that is such an anomaly, mate. When you said that it's a room full of old people, I went,
oh, it was a nightmare.
It's going to be quite hard to rouse them. You
know?
Said, and I said, how are they going to get you up? Hold up 3 knitting balls. Like, and then you said that immediately someone said, fuck off. I was like, where is this gig?
It was just off the Haymarket. I can't remember the name of the venue. I was so knackered.
Well, I mean, like, I think you should. This is the thing. I mean, I often think about this with Lion's Den or places like that, or gigs that you've just said, or people who, you know, you see those people who sometimes start at King Gong.
Yeah.
And I just think, how many of like our generation's best comedians have we lost to one awful crowd?
Yeah, very much. I've seen so many go by the wayside that should be excellent. Yeah. You know, they got it, and I mean, what can I say? I may have another go, I may not. I don't think I'll ever regret it if I never do, because I think I've got such a unique position of having a blog and a podcast and the support, and I took a conscious decision to be very, very positive about the whole thing of this, because it's basically about me having a good time, and I never not have a good time. If the comedian's not funny or I'm not laughing, the last thing I'll do is heckle. I'll just sit in silence, you know, because, you know, we don't want to hear them. We want to hear the comedians.
Anybody who heckles has some underlying things. Either they're a frustrated comedian, something going on, like, because, you know, if you don't like something, you don't like, I don't know, it's like sort of being in a restaurant. If you don't like the food, you've got 2 choices really, isn't it? Where you can quietly sort of say, oh, I don't really like that, or you can, but, you know, nobody's going to go, chef, come over here, this food is fucking shit. It's really dumb to me, I think. So I think that you should, but I think you should, you know, you should do this live in Edinburgh. I'm sure loads of comedians would turn up. You know?
I've had an idea. About maybe doing it, or because I do go around a few festivals now. I know Leicester very well. I know Hastings really well. The two that run that, they've been on here. I would like to do something either for my 50th anniversary
Yeah.
or my 60th birthday in 3 years' time.
Oh wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm that young. That's where all the experience is, I suppose. How do you remember all your routines? Do you have a way of remembering them? Does it go from A to B in your brain, or what?
Um, the way that I end up, yeah, it does go from A to B. It's sort of muscle memory, and I have got quite a good memory, but yeah, it has to be sort of okay. Well, this line comes after this line, and this line comes after this line. But because I'm me, I I don't want to be the one in the room. I don't want to be the one who's out of the room, saying this, because that I know again, it's something I noticed really early on with sort of contemporaries is they'd be brilliant, but they just say stuff in the same way with the same rhythm with the same thing, and I realized that kind of takes you out of the room because after a while you start instead of just if I was talking to you, I wouldn't go. I'd say I walked into a bank the other day and somebody just walked up to me and said you wouldn't go so. I walked into a bank the other day and somebody walked up to me and I said, and that just so when I remember it, I have to remember now, like I try and do the setups differently every time to try and throw in a new word or throw in a new way of saying it,
Yeah.
pause at a different time. And then that's another thing that keeps me in the room. But I sort of know most of my material. I have had a lot of the same jokes when I'm not riffing for a long time, so it would kind of be a bit difficult. But when I've been doing new material, it is a bit of a struggle. But I also think that your brain kind of edits out the bits that aren't funny, which is amazing because you think, oh, I forgot that, I forgot that, I forgot that. And then you do
Yeah.
it again the next day and you go, thank God I forgot that the day before because all of that I remember.
I other than this blog, the most creative thing I've ever done, I've written a script. We did it as a play for Comic Relief. We got a lot of money in for Comic Relief. It's called The Applicant, and I originally wrote it for the Edinburgh Fringe. And it's two people on stage. It's me, who has never had a job before, who comes down from Carlisle and has got a successful girlfriend in London, and I have never had an interview. And my mate, who played all the different roles of the interviewers. And basically how I wrote it was he's sitting in a waiting room, waiting to be interviewed, does a monologue to the audience about just setting up the story, and then his mate comes on and he plays the interview and he progresses and whatnot. So I ran out the first night. We did 3 of them. I ran out the first night, rehearsed it for 10 weeks, and I sat there and I was like supposed to be really nervous anyway, which I was, and I forgot the monologue. And I thought, oh my God, just get me off the stage.
Yeah.
But it was all about rehearse. But what was fascinating was as soon as the other character came on, I had someone to bounce off, and I never forgot the monologue for the next 2 nights. So once I'd done one of them, maybe we should have had a practice room within the venue that we were playing because we didn't have that. But that was a test. That was a realization that if ever I do it again, or if ever, I thought about writing it, readapting it because it's like 10 years old, but maybe get a couple of comedians playing the role.
Yeah,
it would be ideal for that, and see what happens.
I think that's interesting though that you said that because I do think that sort of it's an interesting exercise, isn't it? Because as soon as you sort of think you've forgotten something, it builds. And it's like confidence.
You're so confident of remembering what happens and stuff.
I saw one of the funniest things that I saw. I used to host a lot of the Cavendish Arms that was my gig, Comedy Virgins Tuesday.
I know it well. Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people come through. Annoyingly, sort of, I see a lot of people on the TV who I don't think I did your first gig. I got you on. You in the break and told me that you didn't want to do it, and I forced you on stage, and now you're on TV. Where's my royalties? But I did watch quite a few people go through that, and there was quite a funny one where a guy just he got on stage, did his first joke, got a little bit of a laugh, and then he said, "Oh, I've forgotten the next bit." And then he kept looking up and just going, no, it's not coming back. But the thing is that you've only got 5 minutes, and so like he got to sort of 4 minutes, and I've got to let him know he's got a minute left. So he's just looking up, going, "No, I don't think And I've got to come out and be like, "You've got what, 1 minute?" But what I noticed in that sort of thing is that like if ever I don't remember a bit of new material, the worst thing to do is to panic.
Yeah.
The worst thing to do is go, oh my God, I don't know the next bit. I don't know what I'm saying. This is what's happening. You just let the audience.
That's what the audience is there for, I suppose. You can always bounce off them.
It's a different thing with a play as well, because you can't turn around in the play and be like,
it's a great chunk out. What the hell happened there?
That is the question. Whether it's as noble to. Sorry, mate. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, it is. Let's move on. As I said earlier, I am very fortunate to go to a lot of fringes and festivals. I love to go. I've discovered Hastings and Leicester and Brighton, and Hull is very good. I know everybody who runs them. The big one for me though is still Edinburgh. It's my 18th year this year, which is bonkers. That's my holiday that I go for, and I see about 50 shows in a week, and I come back and I need another holiday. I have the best time. The wonderful thing about the blog now is that everybody knows who I am, so I had difficulty getting to shows because it'll a bit of my time, but I just love it. Tell me about your experiences of the Edinburgh Fringe, or any festivals for that matter. Did you go as a punter? Have you had shows there? Have you been part of different shows there?
I had no idea about the Edinburgh Fringe until I went for the first time, and it was I'd sort of vague sort of things I'd sort of heard about it, but then I went up for the first time with I did the semi-final of So You Think You're Funny,
right?
And that was my first experience of it.
What year was that?
2015, I want to say. So I got through to the semis then, and
congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't get through to the final. I was very nervous that time. But yeah, that gig. Oh my God, I can remember. I went on first, which is always, I can't remember who was the MC, but it was brilliant. And I went on first, and just it was a kind of industry gig, so there's not, people are kind of watching it to judge. And I remember I did because by the way, my parents are very supportive, like
brilliant.
So they will come to if I let my mum would come to every gig I did.
That's fantastic.
So whenever I've gone up to Edinburgh, they've come up and watched as well. My dad's half Scottish, so it's kind of like the link there. But I did this So You Think You're Funny semi-final, and I could just remember sort of I did my first joke, and it got a little bit of laughter, but not much, not a lot. And then you just heard one person clapping, and everybody turned around and looked at my mum, who just went, "But it's so true, though."
That's brilliant, and she's right.
But I loved it. I loved the Edinburgh Fringe. I loved how mad it was, and since then I've done 2 Edinburgh shows, 2 full-length Edinburgh shows. I've done 2 split hours, which were both really fun. And then I was kind of forced into doing my first Edinburgh hour because I had just a great story where I went on holiday with a group of strangers because someone with my name, Ross Smith, dropped out of the trip. So they got in touch with me and said, "Do you want to go?" And I did.
Wow.
And that was kind of a bit of a viral story, and I sort of put that online, and it got in a few papers, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, so that was, when was that? 2017, I think. So
you didn't know anybody there?
No. I just got a message on Instagram. No, message on Facebook. Wow. Saying, our friend has dropped out of the trip. And they said it's cheaper to, it would be cheaper to buy a whole new flight than to just change the name on it. And they saw that I was a comedian, so they thought it would be funny, and it just took off. And so I did my first Edinburgh show there at Just the Tonic, and
That's brilliant. What a story.
yeah. And then the next one I did was the year after that in the Tron, and that was brilliant. That was the year that I got two jokes in Dave's top 10.
Yeah. I saw that. Congratulations. Yeah, brilliant.
And it was just I do love it, and I do miss it now because I haven't been in a few years. But I just sort of feel like if I went now, I'd sort of have to go for 2 weeks and just to kind of I feel like there's a lot of pressure around the show, and it sort of becomes a bit, it's interesting you said like I made a decision to be sort of consciously positive around this because I had to do that a few years ago with comedy where I was like, I'm going to make a decision to be consciously positive about this.
Yeah.
Stuff like Edinburgh or any kind of competition for me just immediately turns me into the right, I've got to do this and I've got to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to you and the audience in whatever room you're in, and that's it.
Have you been to any other fringes or festivals?
Brighton. I've been to Leicester where I've done a show there. Not for any length of time at either of them, I must say. Sort of one or two shows here or there. And then I done the well, there's one that would be brilliant if you came to this. It's called the Crick Howell Comedy Festival, and I'll give them a plug because I really like them, and I've done it every year since it started.
Right.
It's a weekend in a really quaint village in Wales called Crick Howell, and I love it. It's two or three shows over a weekend in a big church, and the whole village comes out to it. And
wow, that sounds brilliant.
This is the only place in the world where I'm famous.
Well,
walk around that village now, and everybody knows who I am. They just get amazing comedians. I was on there with Zoe Lyons and Mark Watson, and it's just fantastic. And they really there's such a lovely crowd, and then everybody goes out afterwards and they all talk about it.
Yeah.
I love those things, but I'd love to do. The goal is to do the Aussie festivals and the New Zealand festivals, and to sort of travel with this because I think that where have you been? Like, where's the weirdest place you've watched comedy? Have you watched it everywhere?
That's a good question. I would say Carlisle. There is a wonderful story. It starts off very quite horrible. It was horrible. I lost my mum, which was awful, in 2019, and my brother obviously was there, my older brother, and he said to me, go to your comedy, and be all right tonight. So I went on my own, and it was the Noise Next Door, who were really good, right? And they'd never played Carlisle before. It's a little tiny room, and they bound on, and I'm sitting at the back with a pint of beer in the dark, feeling sorry for myself. And they go, hello, Carlisle. Can anybody tell me anything good about Carlisle? And somebody yelled out Carlisle United Football Club. And they said, well, have that, because we're going to do a song. Can anybody tell me anything bad about Carlisle? And some bastard yelled out Richard Gill. And I'm like, oh my God. And they went, is he here? Because they think I'm in London. And I'm like, yeah. Well, I ended up singing the song on stage with them, and it was just the most, because it was of the moment again. I was hugging all of them. I said, you don't know how much this means to be part of it, and that's why I love to do it. When I go to a lot of comedy now, because I know a lot of them. I'm very fortunate to know a lot of them. They include me in the set. It's so lovely.
Honestly, because I really do believe that, not to get sort of too philosophical about it, but that is I think that's the reason that we all love comedy, is that most comedians you'll meet get into it from a background of feeling like an outsider.
Yeah.
And then they immediately sort of find this thing where the whole room goes, no, you're not I think that too. I do that too. So when there's an audience member like yourself who kind of really encapsulates that feeling and really appreciates what you do, it's like it's so good to have in a room, because you always every comedian will do this. They'll look for the table that is really laughing at their joke, or they'll listen out for the laugh that they do. So, you know, when you've sort of like, I knew who you were before I'd met you, and I'd always been like, why is he not asking me for
I'm getting round to you. There's so many.
It's honestly one of those things, mate, where like, you know, I think that a lot of the time, sort of comedians can feel like this is quite a disposable, you know,
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Well, the thing for me, apart from the joy of watching it, is the confidence, because it's given me an enormous amount of confidence. I was quite confident before, but now it's through the roof. I always used to sit midway back in an audience, because I thought my laugh would carry. And now I won't have it any other way. If I get pissed off if I'm not in the front row, because you know, it's like, hello, you know, it's so good. We had the anniversary of 40 years downstairs at the King's Head last year, and it was an insane bill. And the headliner, who I know really well, is Al Murray. And just superb. And he walks on. I'm sure you've seen him. And when he walks on, he's got his pint of beer and he throws it all over the front row. And when he didn't realise I was there, and I was like, yes! And literally he just went boom right up me with the beer, and he went, "It's so good to see you again, Rich." I was like drenched. I'm like, cheers.
That is an honour from
magic. You know, it's so good. It's so good.
I love Downstairs at the King's Head. I MC there quite a lot on Thursdays and Saturdays, and it's just that.
I used to go there. I used to go there all the time, because I used to live in Stoke Newington with my brother. Yeah. Sorry, and my favourite opening line to any set this day, in the 50 years I've been watching comedy, is Harry Hill, and well before he was famous. He was late for the show. He brushed past me, jumped onto the stage, and he went, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry I'm late tonight. I had to have a testicle brought down," and got a laugh. And then he said, "From Derby." And when I met him 25 years later, I told him this, and I went, "You still hold the record?" He said, I still keep telling that line to this day. Yeah. It's a lovely bloke.
Once you find a good opener.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're away. You really are. Let's move on. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present? Did you have comedy growing up?
Yeah, well, past and present, we did have comedy growing up. So like Lee Evans was obviously like a big one. You know, and sort of only in the last few years would I sort of say that again out loud. You know, there was a lot of years when, you know, saying Lee Evans, people would be like, "Oh, I see what kind of comedian you are." But
no.
Simon Amstel growing up, and when he was on, you know, Never Mind the Buzzcocks was brilliant. Vic and Bob were.
Oh, I'm with you, my friend.
I'm still on that as well. I love them. I love them. I can't get enough of them. And because I often think this in comedy is there's a kind of a thing of, you know, you're an outsider, you're a loser, or, you know, whatever, and then you get on stage and you sort of, people agree with you, and a lot of comedians take that on and they get a real kind of sense of, oh, I'm a truth teller then. I'm a, you know, that sort of outsider losing them really quickly changes to, oh yeah, well, you get big ideas above yourself. Whereas Bob Mortimer said this brilliant thing where he said, you know, we were just both really content to play the idiot.
Yeah.
And I just love that, because that's what we love as British people, isn't it? The lovable idiot.
Exactly.
Vic and Bob, Ricky Gervais, definitely past and definitely not present. You know, he was in The Office and Extras, and his 3 early stand-ups, like, you know, I have to say,
he is amazing. Yeah.
Now, like, I think the way that he can break down a bit, I don't think I've seen anybody do. You know, like maybe whatever, but the way that he breaks it down to the sum of its parts, and no juice is left out of that bit, is whatever. James Acaster, but then also Joan. I always loved Joan Rivers. Like, I thought Joan Rivers was
the delivery of a joke from her was amazing.
Oh,
She just wouldn't give up. She would. They're called toppers, aren't they? She would consistently top a joke until she got a big laugh. Amazing.
Unbelievable. And Richard Pryor as well. My dad showed me Richard
Oh
Pryor.
yeah.
Like, I still to this day, like, I can remember reading his book, and there would be a bit that he'd do at the start of every chapter, and I'd read that and I'd go, that doesn't sound funny at all. Like, what is he talking about? It would be like, so then I shot my car again, and then I'd go, what? And then, like, I'd go on YouTube and I'd watch it, and it would be the funniest thing.
He was a unique talent. There'll never be another, I don't think, because he led the way for loads and loads of them.
Well, I have this theory about comedians, mate, where I'd say that, like, there's a lot of comedians nowadays, and I sort of put myself in this category of people who've, like, you know, quite neurotic, and they've worked out the system. You know, they've worked out the system of, this is how it works, and this is how I have to be, or this is how whatever. You know, whereas I think there are a lot of comedians, like you said, there'll be another one, never be another one of them, where I think they're born to do it.
Yeah.
Almost like they're like sort of X-Men of comedy, where it's just like, no, you were born with this, and they couldn't turn around and work in a bank, you know, or do this sort of stuff.
Very true. My first ever gig, aged 7, on a family holiday in Scarborough, was Les Dawson.
Right.
And he's still top 5 for me. I just think he is just phenomenally good. And then a year later, I saw Tommy Cooper.
Oh my
God. He was just... The curtains opened, there's nothing on stage but a bed, and he's lying on it, and nothing happens. And a woman in the audience is pissing herself laughing, and it trickles round, so everybody is crying with laughter, and he hasn't done a thing. And he pops his head up, he goes, what, somebody come on. Genius.
I love the story of him with the every taxi driver or somebody driving somewhere, he'd put something in their pocket and go, have a tea bag.
And the other infamous one, when he met the Queen at the Royal Variety, and she said, "You were very good tonight, Mr. Cooper." He said, "Oh, thank you very much." He said, "Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?" And everybody around him went, "Oh my God, what's he going to say?" And she went, "No." He said, "Are you a fan of football?" She said, "No, not really." He said, "Oh, thank God." He said, "Can I have your tickets for the cup final?" That's infamous. So he sort of like laid the way, and I mean the two that did it for me were Morecambe and Wise. I would have loved to have seen them. I remember, aged about 5-year-old, everybody in the family crying at them, and I know Gary Morecambe, and I know I'm trying to get him on here. I've read everything about them, and you know, I would have loved to have met him. They're the reason why I do it, but I can remember first coming down to London. My first Comedy Store bill was Linda Smith, God bless her, Phil Jupitus, Richard Morton, and top of the bill was a comedian called Charles Fleischer, who was very good with voices. And he was never heard of again, an American, because he went off to voice Roger Rabbit, so he made his fortune, which was amazing. And of course the Comedy Store would go every week too, and I see many of them, Frank Skinner and Rick Mail, and on and on and on and on, French and Saunders and everybody. And then Peter Kay came along, and I first saw him on a bill of 5 acts, and he was 4th on the bill. And I laughed so hard at him, I missed the 5th act. And about a month later, I had to go up to Dave Gorman and apologise. Because he was the 5th act. There's so many stories, which are all in the blog. But it's so good. But what's lovely now, as I say, is that there's so many great comedians like yourself who... when I see your name on there, I know I'm going to have a good time, and without even going there, and that's lovely. So you mentioned James Acaster. I have a testimonials page on my blog, which is extraordinary. So if you want to do a testimonial for me, it's not a plug, but if you want to do one, just send me an email with what you want to say and I'll add it to it. But his is by far and away my favourite one. It sums him up perfectly. He said, if I was not a comedian, I would happily sit next to Richard Gill all day and make him laugh.
Yeah.
That's the magic of the man.
I mean, he's actually from Kettering, and I'm not quite from Kettering, but basically, 5 minutes.
So
he made it all possible for me, because I suddenly
wow.
Hold on a minute, I used to work in the cinema with his sister, so
brilliant.
For me, he's like a generational thing, like.
Well, I've been trying to get him on here, but I don't know whether. Well, we'd maybe talk about it after the interview. But he would be amazing. But just before we go, and I've much enjoyed this. You've been such a fantastic guest. I could talk to you all night. It's been so good. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Have you got a podcast? Have you got any gigs coming up? Have you got any books or anything like this, a tour or anything you want to say?
I have absolutely nothing.
Well, I wish you all the best. Keep going.
I think same sort of thing, really. You can find me on social media if you want. On Instagram is at Ross Smith Comedy. I'm trying to get back into sort of posting clips on there, but apart from that, just gigging in the same places, downstairs at the King's Head, Banana Cabaret, Secret Comedy in Brighton. They're the sort of gigs that I do mainly. But apart from that, I just want to say thanks so much for having me on, because it really is an honor. It's sort of become a thing that every comedian sort of knows you and talks about this thing. So when I listen to those podcasts back, I listen to quite a few with people that I've been gigging with quite a lot, and it was just such a fascinating insight. And I think sometimes with comedians, we don't ever really go that deep with each other, Well, thank you so much for your kind words, because what's wonderful about doing the interviews is that everybody's got a different story, and they're all so positive. As I said earlier, the whole thing is designed to spread joy, and that's what I try and do, because it's such a wonderful medium, and long may it continue. And thank you so much for being my guest. It's been really, really great, and I'm looking forward to seeing you very, very soon. And because I think you're a major talent, and I think we should have a beer afterwards after I see you celebrate. You take care, my friend, and all the very best to you. Thank
you so much.
All right.